What's up, everybody? How are you doing today? We're going to talk a little NBA DFS, but this is not about picks today. What I want to talk about is I want to review strategy. Picks is the most overrated portion of DFS, in my opinion. Yes, it's important to get the guys right, but how you build strategies, how you pair guys together is eventually what's going to make you real money if you do play GPPs on Draftkings or FanDuel, whatever it might be. So we need to talk strategy a little bit more often. And what I want to do is break down my GPP finish from last night. I had a nice one, and I want to just talk over the strategy that I used. Hopefully, try to impart some wisdom on some of you guys. Maybe you can use it and bring it into your own repertoire. But before we get into that, as always, if you happen to be new to the station, I come on here multiple times a day and talk fantasy sports. A lot of it's going to be geared towards daily fantasy sports, your DraftKings specifically, but also your FanDuels and your Yahoos and things like that. But I'm going to talk year-long fantasy sports, specifically a lot of football, but some baseball and basketball as well. Easiest way to get new videos, just subscribe to this channel. There's a red button down there below. You press subscribe. That way you get some notifications. You know when things come out. And the overall goal of the channel is just to help you up your fantasy sports game. So we're going to break down strategy. I'm going to talk about a lineup that I played on Wednesday, the 26th, and I ended up finishing 8th out of 8,823. I was in 4th with a minute left to go in the Lakers-Rockets game, which was the last running game of the night, but Julius Randle didn't ruin my night, but he hurt my night a little bit. He grabbed a rebound in a basket in the last minute, and that popped 4 guys up ahead of me. And though you're like, oh, 4 guys, not the end of the world. Well, if you've never finished near the top of a GPP or inspected the kind of the cash payouts, 4 spots makes a really big difference at the top. So in 4th place, I was getting 100 times my buy-in. In 8th place, you get 35. So 100 versus 35, we are talking about a big difference, which only came down to about a point or two. I'm going back and thinking about a couple of the threes that my guy that I had missed, and it just it tears you up inside because I had one bad pick within the group, and we'll go through that a little bit carefully. So, first off, if you've never gotten to near the top of a GPP guaranteed prize pool tournament on DraftKings or FanDuel, and you play a lot, you guys, I'm not going to pretend like it's easy. And when I first started playing this, and I probably played a year before I ever had a really, really good finish near the top of one. I did get second out of like 25,000 once, but it was in one of these massive double ups, and it was really early on when I was playing, and I didn't really know the difference. And I bet there's a lot of you out there that don't quite get the difference, totally all the little nuances. And I was in that boat for a really, really long time. I've played DFS almost every single day for 3 or 4 years now, or whatever it is. So it is a large learning curve. When I'm done with this too, guys, I'm going to kind of break down the services and the sale that I'm running. If you do want to start to try to win more, I do kind of run a group or a networking thing that will help you if you choose to, but I'll break that down at the end. So if you want to get close to the top in GPPs, the first thing I'll tell you is if you're just entering one per day, good luck. It's hard. You can't take a lot of chances when you're only entering one per day because you're going to end up normally going with a lot of the quote-unquote chalkier plays. If you're really new to DFS, chalky is the main guys that we all know are in a really good spot statistically. If you're an NFL DFS guy, for example, Julio Jones is in a great spot this week versus my Packers. That's a chalky play that everybody knows about. The same goes for NBA. And if you follow your roto grinders and your fantasy labs and everything else, you're going to end up with a lot of the same chalky plays that everybody else does because that's what everybody's watching to get their information. So doing it with one lineup is going to be tough. So I've been using this 5x5 or 5-pack strategy, and I'm going to give you a real brief rundown of what it is. So everybody's got a different bankroll. So let's work under the notion that you have $10 a day that you want to bet in GPPs. Instead of entering one $9 or one $10 tournament, try setting 5 $2 tournaments. And what you want to do is spend your morning, afternoon researching who your favorite players are of the day. You can depend on how ballsy you want to be. If you want to waste some guys who might be lower owned, you can take some chalkier guys. Ultimately, you're going to take a few more risk in your remaining 3 guys, but pick out the 5 guys that you feel best about, that you feel can offer you a ton of value going into the evening. Now, you want to set those 5 guys in all 5 of the lineups, and then what you're going to do is mix and match the remaining 3 players around them, and this will vary from slate to slate. But I'll go through what I did, for example, but I like to leave myself with a little cap flexibility in the remaining 3 guys. So if you can get those 5 guys in for about 28 to 4, maybe 37,000 or more, whatever it might be. It's really not as important. The important part is finding guys you can count on and doing a pretty decent job with one. Okay. I actually did 2 of the 5 packs last night because there were so many options out there. And since it's earlier in the year, it's a lot more difficult to try to nail down like your for sure picks. So I mostly stay away from cash earlier on, and I wanted to take some more up guys. So before we get any further, Anthony Davis ruined the curve for a lot of people last night. He was 18% owned in this tournament that I played. Ownerships or percentages are all over the place this time of the year. But if you didn't have him, there wasn't a lot you were going to do. I actually finished in the money in a tournament when I didn't have him, but that's because I had a lot of the other picks right outside of it. But he was kind of a curve ruiner last night. So the 5 pack I used in this scenario was Sergio, the point guard from 76ers, very popular play. James Harden at shooting guard, very popular play. Luol Deng was the one that I used that did not work out very well. I thought he had some upside for the Lakers, but Randall dominated the ball, and the other guys did. So he didn't really get to touch it a lot. Ultimately, he didn't murder the lineup by any stretch of the imagination, but he wasn't very good. So that was my big downfall. That's what kept me out of first place was Luol Deng. But in the power forward spot, I went with Michael Green, another very popular play. But popular or not, if they work out, it's okay. And then I used Miles Turner at the center position, and he was basically my darling of the evening. He's the one who made me my money last night, outside of course, Anthony Davis. Turner is a kind of an unknown to a lot of the newer people, so he wasn't used a lot. But I set all 5 of these guys in 5 lineups. Now, in a normal night without an Anthony Davis 100-point performance, I would have ended up in the money all 5 times. Because I only used Anthony Davis once out of these 5 lineups, I only finished in the money 2 times, and with the one lineup working out very, very, very well. Now, the goal was, what I did with those three remaining guys is I try to find like a little stack from the same game. And what it might be, if I have, say, $22,000 left to play with, I might try to find like 2 guys around 8 to 10 or 8 or 9,000, pair them together, and hope that that game becomes very close, high scoring, and even potentially if there's an overtime, I can maximize my output by picking the high scoring, close game where the starters get their full run, and overtime is just a bonus if it happens to come to fruition. But in this specific lineup, I was left with Anthony Davis, who was amazing, just absolutely amazing. He hit 10 times value, which does not happen a lot. His point guard, Frazier, who is like 9 times value, which is still really tough to do. And then Nurkic of the Denver Nuggets, who also had a really, really good night. And now that I got a little later in the night and he barely played the second half, another area that if things had worked out for me, I could have done a little better in the tournament. So another thing I'll tell you, you got to get a little bit lucky. Anybody who tells you that there's no luck associated with DFS is wrong. It's a long-term skill game, like playing poker, like betting on the stock market. And any given day, anybody can be lucky. But over a long period of time, the cream will rise to the top. Okay. I talked about a little bit how you can go chalky with those guys if you want. Ultimately, in those 3 remaining spots is when I try to really maybe take some more upside guys that aren't going to be as high as owned. And like I already reiterated, if you can find them within the same game, I want at least 2 guys from the same game. Because that way I'm taking a bigger chance, because if there's a blowout, both guys might be bad. But if they both work out, I'm trying to get to the top, and I'm trying to maximize my potential by using some version of like a mini stack. And if I can get 3 of them in there like I did last night, even a little bit better. Okay. I talked about how aggressive you want to go with those 5 guys. An example would be I'm using Mason Plumlee of the Blazers in my 5-pack tonight. He is risky because he gets into foul trouble early and then often doesn't even participate in the game. But I know that he regularly torches the Clippers, which is something I know most people don't know about. And I think that he might get overlooked, especially because he's coming off of a really bad game. So some nights I'll be more aggressive with that 5-pack. Some nights I'll be a little less aggressive. It all really depends on how I individually assess the slate. People will often ask me questions. Well, what's your rule? What's your rule? What's your rule? I don't believe that you can just make a certain rule, because I think every night's a little bit different. Last night, I was all over the stars. I was on Harden and Westbrook. They both did a fine job. Anthony Davis ruined the curve, which happens every once in a while. But on a normal night, Westbrook and Harden would have been everything that you wanted them to be and really taken you to the promised land, because it was a star-studded night. It made sense to go stars last night. Tonight, Thursday night, I don't think that it does. So you have to weigh each thing individually. People are always asking me for a blueprint. I don't believe that there is blueprint. And you could actually translate this to real life. People want to know, what's the blueprint to success? Well, first off, I'm probably not the right person to ask. But they always want to know, what's the blueprint to success? And they want to follow in somebody's footsteps. Just like in life, in DFS, you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to make some choices on your own. If you're just going to the websites that are popular and trying to pick their picks, you're never going to be out on your own. You're always going to get guys that even if they do well, they're going to be all the guys that everybody else knows about. Roto Grinders and Fantasy Labs do a wonderful job, but the fact that their viewership is through the roof and it doesn't really teach you to learn on your own as much is what can hold some people back. One of the things I think my group that I run does a really good job at is we discuss different teams, we discuss the teams we follow. People get into their sidebar conversations, but it'll allow you to look at some guys who aren't going to be 25, 30% owned. I mean, like James Harden was a great pick last night, but he was a great pick that everybody knew about. So even though he put up huge numbers, the fact that he was 90% owned in cash games, in some cash games I entered, it didn't do as much for you. Now, in some GPPs I entered, he was only 33% owned. He was a big help in those. Again, it goes back to the fact that the percentages are all over the place early in the year, which is another reason I prefer GPPs this time of the season. So you're going to have to take some chances. Just like anybody you've ever seen do great things in life, they took some chances. And if you want to do great things in DFS, you're ultimately going to have to take some chances on some players that maybe aren't going to be owned. But by utilizing that 5-pack, then you can take more chances with those other 3 remaining guys. And if you get your 5 guys right, then maybe 2 or 3 of your guys or your setups in your other areas can do all right. So I probably rambled on for a little bit. It's hard to explain these things over a video, so I tried to do my best to make it make sense to you guys. Hopefully that kind of flips some things around for you. I know since I've started talking this 5-pack strategy, not much under a year ago, and it's worked for me. I've really seen my GPP game up. I was good at cash for a long time, but I was never really getting consistent high finishes in GPP. But since I've been doing this, it's worked out really well for me. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Let me just hit up the sale, what I'm doing real quick, guys. So basically, my service consists of this. I will give you a breakdown every single day. I will tell you who my 5-pack is, and then I will also share with you 5 days of the cash lineup, how I'm starting it. Cash lineups are generally going to be me doing some of the research for you, but putting in 5 chalkier guys. There's safety with that in cash games. It saves you time more than anything. Those are guys you can go out and find on your own, but it's also going to save you the time. And I know most of you guys are probably pretty busy out there with your real jobs and your wives and your kids and your lives and stuff like that. So I'll do that. I'll also break down. I don't have time to write up a breakdown of every player, but I try to go through each guy and say at least GPP only, cash only, playable in both, fade. And occasionally, if I feel strongly on somebody, I'll write up a few sentences of why that is to help you guys learn. But I'll send that information out to you every single day. It covers baseball, football, basketball. I don't do it by individual sports. I do it by just time period. It can be monthly. It's $30 a month, or it's $160 right now for the full year, which means if you were to give me the money today, you would be good until 1 year from today. And it would just cover whatever sports I was doing at the time, which I do NBA, MLB, and NFL. Now, as great as my information is, and it's another thing that can help you, and sometimes I'll try to point out some of the sleepier guys that maybe not everybody knows about that I know because I watch every basketball game. That's part of it. The other part is the private Facebook group. And what this is, and I'm starting to think as we get bigger that I might have to start a second one so that there's not too many people within one group. I haven't decided on that yet, but we'll see where that goes from here. But the Facebook group right now, we're like 250 members or something like that. I've had an influx over the last couple of days because it's the start of NBA. But it's just a place for people to conversate. And what's really cool is since it's all paying members, these are guys who all take the shit really, really seriously. People who want to win. People who are willing to pay money for something care about it more than people who aren't willing to pay money for something. It's just that simple, right? I mean, I don't really know how else to explain it. So you got guys who are really interested in getting better. Now, my basic job within here is just to be a moderator. Most of the time, I don't really have to do a lot for it. I'm mostly doing my research, writing my stuff up, sending it out. Every once in a while, we'll come up with a conflict, but most of these dudes in here are all pretty cool, pretty chill. We got a few ladies in here as well. So that's very, very rare. But, you know, you might get a guy from Cincinnati who might know his team. Then you get a guy from Texas who knows his team. So it's a great place to congregate, talk sports, come up, and make your own decisions. There's a lot of people I've seen enter the group who just get better over time because they're talking to other people and they observe or get some of it through osmosis. So basically, it's a network. There's a lot of people within my group who also do hockey lineups, NASCAR lineups, PGA lineups. And these guys all have my blessing to go out and they're allowed, if people want to buy their services, great. It's a networking area to get better at DFS, to meet other people who play it, and not just your standard website you go to where you read about it. going to take a little time when you first enter to kind of get to know people, and kind of get to understand who knows their stuff and what like that. But it's a good idea. If you have any questions about it, you can hit me up at my email right there. If not, I appreciate you watching. Have a wonderful day. Subscribe to this channel. If you're willing to give a thumbs up, always appreciate it. But let's go win some money tonight, guys. We got a really boring Thursday night football game, so let's go win some money playing NBA. I might set one football lineup because the Jaguars Titans, I mean, we're talking snooze fest right about now. I wonder if Allen Robinson will get me a point this week. He didn't get one last week. We'll see. So, all right, guys, thanks a lot. Have a great day.